Part 130. Sky Coffin. Author, Ching Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1291. Because of the art of concealment, when passing by the villagers, they were not even close to my presence. I walked straight into the courtyard and towards the room where Mrs. Li was. The door to Mrs. Li's room was closed tightly. I looked around and found that no one was paying attention to me. I quickly stretched out my hand to open the door and got in. As soon as I entered the room, I saw Mrs. Li sitting cross-legged on the kong, staring at me with a pair of dead grey eyes. I released the concealment technique. When Mrs. Li saw me, she didn't have any panic on her face. She just looked at me quietly with her numb eyes. I took a step forward and asked, "Mrs. Li, I have something to ask you." Mrs. Li seemed to have known I would come for a long time. She motioned for me to sit down. I sat across from her and continued to ask without saying a word. Looking at Mrs. Li like this, she seemed to want to tell me everything she knew in her heart. Mrs. Li was silent for a moment and said slowly, "Do you want to ask about this village?" I nodded and asked, "Mrs. Li, what is going on in this village? Why are there bones buried in the yards of every house? Also, did you know that the person in the coffin is not your wife?" Mrs. Li looked at me with her numb eyes, then let out a long sigh and said, I know everything." Later, Mrs. Li slowly explained to me what happened in their village. Yong'an village suffers from drought all year round and the people are miserable. The young and middle-aged people in the village choose to go out to work in order to make a living. Mrs. Li looked at me and asked, "Young man, do you believe there are drought demons in this world?" I nodded and replied, "Of course I believe it." Mrs. Li continued, "Only our Hu family knows the cause of the drought in the village. There is a large tomb on the east mountain of the village, and a drought demon is buried in that tomb." As soon as these words came out, my pupils trembled slightly. It seemed that Princess Longji's feeling was correct. There was indeed a drought demon in this village. Our Hu family is the tomb keepers of this big tomb. Some time ago, a man came here. The man Mrs. Li mentioned should be Yinggo. Yinggo came to the village and explained clearly the reason for the drought in the village in front of all the villagers. After hearing this, the villagers in the village were furious and wanted to find someone to destroy the drought demon. And Yinggo said that he had a way. As for his method, he called back the young adults working outside, killed them, buried the bodies in the yard, and then let the zombies transformed by these young adults deal with the drought demons. I had some doubts in my heart and asked, "He told you to kill your own relatives, will you just kill them?" Old Mrs. Li sighed slightly and said, "Some people in the village disagreed at first, but that man said that the people he killed would not die, but would instead have eternal life. Then he killed a villager in front of everyone. Everyone was horrified, but in less than a minute, the man who should have died came back to life. Seeing this, the villagers worshipped the man as a god. But I know, it's not like being resurrected from the dead, it's obviously turned into a zombie." Hearing this, I couldn't help laughing at the ignorance of these villagers. It was really ridiculous that they worshipped a monster as a god. Sky Coffin. Author, Ching Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1292. However, it is understandable that Yong'an village is located in a very remote location and the villagers have backward thinking. Because of the existence of drought demons, the people of Yong'an village were in dire straits. Therefore, when Yinggo proposed to eliminate drought demons, the villagers readily agreed. However, the way to eliminate Yinggo is to raise corpses. Use the corpses raised by those young adults to destroy Hanbao's tomb. However, I have some doubts in my heart. The four ancestors of zombies should be in a group. Why does Yinggo have to deal with drought demon? Mrs. Li looked at me and said, "Young man, please, you must stop that man. Don't let him destroy the drought tomb." I pondered for a moment and then asked Mrs. Li, "Where is Hanbao's tomb?" Mrs. Lee told the specific location of Hanbao's tomb. After I learned the location, I planned to take a look. Maybe there was coffin fungus in Hanbao tomb. I once again used the art of hiding and left the Hu family. Hanbao's tomb is in the mountains to the east of the village, so I only need to go to Dongshan. After waiting on the mountain, it should be easy to find Hanbao's tomb. After all, there is no grass growing where Hanbao is. As soon as I arrived at Dongshan, I saw Zhang Xiai and others walking down the mountain. Zhang Xiai and others looked very ugly. Princess Longji saw me and walked towards me quickly. She came to my ear and whispered, "Lu Su, there is a drought demon tomb on this mountain." I nodded and said, "I know." Zhang Xiai also came up and whispered to me, "Lu Su, we found the corpse raising place. It's in the mountain canyon. However, there are no corpses there." After hearing this, I frowned. There were no corpses in the corpse raising area. This was a bit weird. However, I suddenly thought of one thing. There are a lot of corpses in Yong'an village. Could it be possible, did Yinggo want those corpses to kill his relatives, and then send them to the corpse raising ground after his strength increased? I glanced at village chief Huang, who was not far away, and whispered to Zhang Xiai, "You go back to the village first. Longji and I will go to the Hanbao tomb to have a look. Remember, no matter what changes happen in the village, under the condition of ensuring your own safety, you can take care of it if you can, and if you can't, stop it." Zhang Shi nodded, and I continued, "Tell Huaxiu for me to wait for me in the village, and I will definitely find the coffin fungus." Huaxiu's injuries were so serious that even with an umbrella, she could not walk in the sun for a long time. So, she didn't come out with us. "Okay, you should pay attention to safety," Zhang Xiai told me. I nodded, glanced at Princess Longji, and said, "Let's go." Afterwards, Princess Longji and I headed to Dongshan. When village chief Huang saw us leaving alone, he quickly stepped forward to ask what happened, but was stopped by Zhang Xiai. On the way, I told Yinggo about dealing with drought demon. After hearing this, Princess Longji was slightly startled and asked, "Want to deal with Hanbao?" I nodded and replied, "Yes, I don't understand why we are the ancestors of the four zombies, why do they kill each other? General, Yinggo, and Ho Qing, I have seen these three ancestors of zombies more than once, and Ho Qing was also eliminated by me. These three guys share the same hatred and are thinking of ways to kill me, but why should Yinggo deal with Hanbao? Is it possible that Hanbao doesn't want to join in the same trend?" Princess Longji shrugged and said, "I don't know why. I'll find out later when I see Hanbao and ask him." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1293. Ask him directly. I looked at Princess Longji doubtfully. Princess Longji puffed up her chest, glanced at Wei Wei very arrogantly, and said, "That's right, just ask me directly, and you don't even know who I am. I am Longji. Lord Hongluan Sing. That Hanbao and I will naturally give you 3 points of thin noodles." I rolled my eyes and said, "Just pretend." When Princess Longji heard this, her hair suddenly exploded, like an angry kitten, and she rushed towards me with her teeth and claws spread out. "Lu Su, do you look down on me?" I subconsciously wanted to hide, but Princess Longji was already in front of me. She grabbed the soft spot around my waist and twisted it hard. I took a breath and said, "Hey, hey, hey. You are the princess, Lord Hongluangxing. You can't be so rude." "I'm just rude. I'm just incompetent. What can you do to me?" Although Princess Longji is a god, her character is not as arrogant as a god. She feels more like a playful and cute little girl to me. Soon, we both arrived at the top of the mountain. But when I reached the top of the mountain, I was dumbfounded. The front of the mountain was lush and green, but the back was really dry and yellow. Wherever you look, it's like you've experienced a fire. The vegetation is withered and lifeless, and the land is full of cracks. It seems that it is not a rumor that wherever the drought demon passes, not a blade of grass will grow. I looked at Princess Longji and asked, "Longji, is Hanba a god or a monster?" Princess Longji thought for a while and replied, "Hanba is the god of drought, a goddess with dual identities of a god and a monster. There are many rumors about Hanba. According to legend, Hanba was named Enba and was the daughter of the Yellow Emperor. However, due to illness, Jian's soul combined with her and turned her into a Hanba. This drought demon is also the only one among the 4 ancestors of zombies who has the status of a god." I didn't ask any more. I just wanted to find the drought tomb as soon as possible, and then go see if there was any coffin fungus. I looked around, observing the direction of the mountains, hoping to determine the specific location of Hanbao's tomb by looking for dragon points. Because Mrs. Lee only told me a rough direction, which was not accurate. This is actually the legendary cave of trapped corpses. The corpse cave is a hole of great danger. Burying the dead here can protect the body from destruction. However, the surrounding feng shui will also suppress the corpse in the feng shui hole, making it immortal forever. My eyes were on a canyon not far away. I pointed in the direction of the canyon and said, "There." Afterwards, Princess Longji and I headed to the direction of the canyon. The canyon is 60 or 70 meters deep, and the rock walls on both sides are full of small caves. In addition, the canyon exudes a strong corpse aura. It seems that this is the corpse raising place mentioned by Jiangxi. Princess Longji and I walked along the steep path towards the canyon. There was no grass growing here and the ground was dry and cracked. While passing a cave, I decided to go in and take a look. The cave is not big or deep, and a small clay pot is placed in the center. When I saw this clay pot, I immediately knew why this place had become a corpse-raising ground. I came to the clay pot and opened it. There were white bones inside. This is an urn coffin burial, which uses urns and basins as burial tools. It is often used to bury young children and teenagers. Some adults also use urn coffins. Yong'an village has a secondary burial custom. After a person is buried for the first time, the body will rot and leave bones. The bones will then be placed in clay pots, urns, and placed in specific places. It seems that there should be urn coffins stored in the surrounding small caves. No wonder Jiangxi I said that there were no corpses. It turned out that they were all bones. Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanbao. Chapter 1294. Human bones can also be lifted up. Once the human bones are lifted up, they will turn into skeletons. Although bone corpses have no flesh and blood, their bones are already very strong, no less powerful than ordinary swords and guns, and they are extremely powerful. They will not eat people, but will choose to suck blood to nourish their bones. Even if it is chopped into pieces, the bone corpse can be reorganized into a human form, which is very difficult to deal with. Princess Longji and I left the corpse cave and walked towards the canyon. I entered several more corpse caves on the way. These corpse caves were filled with pottery pots. Some of the corpses did not even have pottery pots, so they were randomly thrown on the ground. There are at least 7 or 8 bone corpses in a corpse cave, and there are countless corpse caves on the cliffs on both sides of the entire canyon. A rough calculation shows that there are at least 1,000 bone corpses in the entire canyon. It would be very disadvantageous for me to raise the corpse, so I must find a way to find the feng shui eye of this evil place and break it. However, before that, I have to enter the tomb of the drought demon to look for the coffin fungus. Princess Longji and I came to the bottom of the canyon. I pointed in one direction and said, "That's where the ancient tomb is." Princess Longji nodded and walked with me towards the entrance of the ancient tomb. Not long after walking, Princess Longji was dripping with sweat, her chest was rising and falling violently, and she was breathing heavily. I looked at Princess Longji with some confusion and asked, "Are you hot?" Princess Longji nodded repeatedly and replied, "Yes. It's very hot." I joked, "The legendary Lord Hongluan is also afraid of heat. This is really a strange thing." Princess Longji rolled her eyes and said, "Even if I am the king of heaven, the Jade Emperor will be warm when he comes, right? Wherever the drought demon passes, not a single blade of grass grows, and it can control fire. The closer you get to the drought demon, the burning sensation will be very strong. If an ordinary person gets close, they will probably be evaporated by the heat in an instant." After hearing this sentence, I seemed to understand why the villagers here have the custom of double burial. If buried directly, the body may evaporate directly, but the bones will be different. As long as they are not close to the drought demon, they can be preserved. Princess Longji looked at me doubtfully and asked, "Aren't you hot?" I shook my head. Princess Longji stretched out her hand and touched my forehead gently. She said in surprise, "You are so cool. Come on. Let me give you a hug." As he said that, he opened his arms and was about to hug me. I stepped aside and said, "Men and women do not kiss each other. Princess, please respect yourself." Princess Longji stretched out her hand and nodded my head angrily, saying, "Look at how arrogant you are. Is it possible that except for Su Tianxian, there is no other woman in the world who can fall in your eyes?" I nodded very seriously and replied, "That's right." Princess Longji was speechless for a moment and said, to use a popular term, "You are a love brain." She and I did not continue talking about this matter. Soon, we came to a cave. Looking at the dark cave, I said to Princess Longji, "This is it? Be careful, I always feel like there's something weird here." Princess Longji reminded. We both entered the cave. The space inside the cave is very small and can only accommodate one person, so Princess Longji and I can only go one behind the other. I don't know how long I walked, but the surrounding space began to become wider. As I walked, a red light suddenly appeared in front of my eyes. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanba. Chapter 1295. I quickened my pace and ran towards Hongmang. When I came to it, I saw clearly that it was actually a talisman emitting red light. Princess Longji also came over. When she saw the talisman, she whispered, "5 directions divine talisman." I looked back at Princess Longji and asked, "Do you recognize this talisman?" Princess Longji nodded and replied, "This talisman can only be used by those who have become gods. Come to think of it, it is none other than the gods who sealed Hanba." I frowned, this was a little unreasonable. Hanba is the legendary drought god who once made great contributions to the Yellow Emperor. Not to mention that there is no credit, there is also hard work, right? Afterwards, not only did you prevent them from returning to heaven, but you also suppressed them here. This kind of thing, let alone a god, would make even an ordinary person feel aggrieved. I asked, "What's the way to break this talisman?" Princess Longji thought for a while and replied, "It's very simple. It only requires strong yin energy to break it. But when the talisman is broken, the sealed Hanba will also suffer backlash, and it may even kill her." I lowered my head and thought, I already figured out what I would do to win the hook. He raises corpses to gather corpse energy, which is the ultimate yin energy. Presumably, he wants to break the seal of the 5 directions suppression talisman and thus severely damage Hanba. However, I still don't understand why Yingu wants to deal with Hanba take action. I took a step forward, and Princess Longji rushed to me and said, "No, you can't get in." Before she finished speaking, I had already stepped over. Princess Longji looked at me blankly. She stretched out her hand and gently touched the air in front of her. She saw a light curtain emitting blood-colored light blocking her way forward. This should be the barrier created by the Five Directions Town Talisman. The God-suppressing talisman, as the name suggests, has a deterrent effect on gods, and Princess Longji is Hongluan Jun, so this God-suppressing talisman will naturally have an effect on her as well. I said to Princess Longji, "You wait for me here, I will go in and check the situation." "Wait. I can go in too." Princess Longji shouted at me. Later, Princess Longji asked me to pass on some Zaiwei Qi to her. Although I didn't understand the purpose of doing this, I still followed her words and passed some of the Zaiwei Qi in my body to her. Princess Longji needed the secret with both hands. Then, the wisp of purple energy I passed on to her actually formed a faint purple film from her body. She walked past the Five Directions Town Talisman, and the blood-red the light curtain did not appear. There should be 5 of these Five Directions Town Talismans, placed in the 5 directions of East, West, South, North, and Center, and the one in front of us should be the Dongfang Town Talisman. Princess Longji said to me, "The reason why you don't feel the heat in the place where Hanba is because the Zaiwei Qi in your body can pass through the barrier of the Five Directions Town Talisman for the same reason." I suddenly realized that I did not continue to talk to Princess Longji. I had to get into it as soon as possible, otherwise things would change later. After walking for about a minute, the space suddenly became wider. Princess Longji made a secret with her hands and pointed her finger in the air. The next moment, the torches on the wall were lit, and I was able to see clearly the environment I was in now. This is a large natural cave. Wherever you look, there is desolation. The walls are full of cracks caused by drought. In the center of the cave, there is a huge sarcophagus. This sarcophagus has a Five Directions talisman affixed to it, and there is also a big mushroom growing on the coffin lid. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1296. This mushroom grows a little unevenly, unlike the mushrooms we see every day. However, I have some doubts in my mind. The conditions for the growth of coffin fungi are harsh. The most special point is that the material of the coffin in which the coffin fungus grows must be of high quality, which means it must be a high-quality wooden coffin. And the coffin in front of me is a sarcophagus, so why does coffin fungus grow? However, I didn't think too much about it, because this is a real coffin fungus. With her, Hua Xiu's injuries will definitely heal, and maybe she will become an immortal as a result. Just when I wanted to get closer to the sarcophagus, I suddenly saw the lid of the sarcophagus moving. The harsh friction sound filled the empty tomb chamber. Suddenly, the heavy stone coffin lid was suddenly blown away by a strong force. He fell heavily on the tomb wall. My pupils trembled slightly, but fortunately the coffin bacteria was fine. At this moment, a slender white jade hand gently rested on the eaves of the coffin, and then, a very beautiful woman sat up from the coffin. The woman's skin is as white as snow, her black and flowing hair is draped casually on her shoulders, and her smooth and bony collarbones are exposed to the air. The woman turned her head and looked at me. Her eyes were beautiful, as bright as the stars in the dark night, and as warm as the warm sun in winter. Moreover, the woman's pupils were red, very enchanting and charming. The woman looked at me, a dull look flashed through her beautiful eyes at first, then the corners of her mouth slightly raised, and she asked, "You're here?" She stood up slowly and saw that she was wearing a long blue dress, but the dress was shabby, with only a few pieces of blue satin hanging on the woman's body. Her snow-white skin was exposed to the air, and her figure was looming. Very irritating. The woman stepped out of the sarcophagus with her slender jade legs. She came to me, folded her hands across her chest, looked me up and down, and said, "Although I have been waiting for a long time, you are finally here." I looked at her doubtfully and asked, "Do you recognize me?" The woman smiled and said, "Of course we know each other, but at that time, you came to me in another identity." "Let me think about it." The woman thought for a moment and said, "You were the most powerful feng shui master at that time. As for your name, I forgot." It dawned on me that this must be one of my many reincarnations. Princess Longji quickly waved to the woman on the side and said in surprise, "Female king. Do you still recognize me?" The woman looked at Princess Longji, and was stunned for a moment, then asked, "Are you Longji?" "Yes. I didn't expect that after 1,000 years, you still know me." Princess Longji came to the female slave with a smile, without any airs of a goddess at all. The two women began to reminisce about old times, and then the female slave looked at me and said, "1,000 years have passed. It's time for you to fulfill your promise and take me out of here." I looked at the female slave and asked, "I can take you out of here, but only if you answer a few questions for me." The female demon motioned for me to continue. "First question, why are you sealed here?" The female slayer lowered her head and thought for a while, then replied, "Why is it sealed here? It's the generals, queens, and the ghosts who win the fight. They joined forces with a certain god to seal me here." I nodded and asked, "Second question, why did they seal you?" The female demon replied, "I think you know the identity of the general, but I want to say that you are wrong. The general is not a god." Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1297. Isn't the general one of the 9 evils? My eyebrows are not one of the 9 evils. The female evil spirit continued, "Actually, the real evil spirit is the ancient evil spirit. Ancient Jian." The female demon nodded and said, "Yes, the real god is the ancient Jian. You also know how the 4 of us turned into zombies. It was Jian's soul that caused trouble, and the golden hair roar is a clone of the ancient Jian. General, I just got the purest soul of ancient Jian, so you will recognize him as a god." I suddenly realized and asked, "They killed you to take away the soul in your body?" "That's right, as long as the souls gather together, Jian can come back to the world." Hearing this, I breathed a sigh of relief and said, "It is impossible for Jian to reappear in the world. Ho Qing is already dead." The female demon was stunned for a moment, then shook her head and said, "Although Ho Qing is dead, Jian's soul has returned to its original form." Suddenly I had a bad premonition in my heart, and I asked, "Where is the body of Jian?" The woman's next words confirmed the uneasiness in my heart. "Sky Coffin." With this one, I finally understood why he and Hooking were willing to die at that time. It turns out that he let Jian's soul return to his body in advance. Once I kill the general and Yinggo, their souls will also return to their body, and Jian will break through the Sky Coffin. However, there is no solution at the moment. As long as the female slayer is alive, it will be fine if I kill the general and Yinggo. Do you have any other questions?" the female demon asked. I thought over and over again and asked, "How should I take you out?" The female demon stretched out her white index finger, gently touched her chin, and said, "It's very simple, that is to break the 5-direction suppression talisman." I asked doubtfully, "If I break the 5-direction suppression talisman, won't you be counterattacked and your body and soul will be destroyed by then?" The female demon smiled, looked at Princess Longji, and said, "You are right, but with Longji here, this matter can be avoided." Princess Longji nodded and said, "Yes, I have a way to protect her." I lowered my head and pondered. If that was the case, then I would do nothing and let Yinggu break the seal, and then take the opportunity to kill Yinggu. In this way, the cumbersome process of breaking the Wufangjin talisman would be left, and I could kill him. Windhoek. Okay, I'll get you out. The female demon smiled. I pointed to the coffin fungus and said, can you give it to me? The female demon waved her hand and said, if you need it, just take it. I took off the coffin fungus and left the Hanbatomb. Princess Longji did not leave, presumably to make some preparations. I returned to the village, found Huashiu, and took out the coffin fungi. Huashiu looked at the coffin fungus in my hand and asked with some surprise, Brother Emperor, where did you find it? It's a long story. You'd better take the coffin bacteria as soon as possible. Huashiu took the coffin mushroom, her eyes full of disgust, and she said to me, Brother Emperor, can you use the coffin mushroom to make a dish for me? This thing looks so ugly that I can't eat it. When I heard this sentence, I laughed out loud. Okay, just be patient, this coffin fungus may lose its original effect when cooked. Huashiu looked at the coffin bacteria and his throat trembled slightly. At my urging, Huashiu ate the coffin fungus. Ah! Brother Huang! It tastes so bad. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1298. I said, good medicine tastes bitter, although this is not medicine. How are you feeling? Huashiu replied, I feel fine, but it will take me some time to digest this coffin fungus. I nodded and said to Huashiu, just stay here to recuperate, and I will handle the rest of the matter myself. Huashiu smiled sweetly at me, hugged my arm affectionately, and said, Brother Emperor, you are so kind to me. I stretched out my hand, rubbed Huashiu's head and said, what you are saying is that I am your royal brother. If I am not good to you, who will be good to you? Huashiu stuck out his tongue at me and said, you were not like this in the last life. You were busy with government affairs every day and ignored me. I don't know what happened in the previous life, but no matter that life, it has no influence on my thoughts in this life. I have had many identities, but I only know that my name is Lu Su in this life. I repeatedly told Huashiu to take good care of her injuries, and then I found Zhang Xi, and I told him about Han Bie. After listening to this, Zhang Xi's expression became very serious. He asked me, are you sure you want to release the drought demon? If you release the drought demon, there will definitely be no grass growing wherever it passes, and all life will be devastated. But it's your fault. I have also considered this matter. However, the Zai Wei Qi in my body can withstand the power of Han Bie, and maybe it can also suppress the female Bie, allowing her to live like a normal person. You don't have to worry about this matter. I have made my own decision. Zhang Xi didn't say anything when he saw my persistence. Afterwards, the two of us discussed how to make Yang Go break the seal. Zhang Xi said, we have also guessed before that why the corpses are buried at home is to let these people kill their own family members after picking up the corpses, so that they can gain more power. I think this is indispensable if the seal is to be broken. There are more than 200 families in Yong'an village. If I leave those corpses alone, these 200 families will definitely die. We have to find a way to save these villagers, and then by borrowing the power of the general in my body, we should be able to break the seal. I said to Zhang Xi. Zhang 11 nodded in agreement, and he raised a very critical question, that is, how to save these villagers. There were too many villagers for just the two of us to do it. I thought about it again, and suddenly came up with a clever idea. I called out Cai Dai, and a burst of colorful light flashed from my eyebrows. The next moment, Cai Dai's figure condensed in front of me. She stretched and yawned. Nai Dai usually sleeps inside me when she is not around me. In her words, the purple energy and dragon energy in my body can be used for her practice. Lu Su, what's wrong? Kadi looked at me sleepily. I said, since you can fall into dreams, you must have a way to manipulate people in their dreams, right? Cai Dai nodded and said, of course I can. Please do me a favor. I tell you the plan I have in mind. I want Nai Dai to put the entire village of villagers into a deep sleep, and then control Nai Dai to make them leave the village. The time for these corpses to be recovered is tonight. As long as they can survive this night, these villagers can be rescued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Ching Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1299. When Cai Dai heard my plan, she was stunned for a moment and then said, no, I refuse. I looked at her doubtfully and asked, why? Cai Dai put her hands on her waist and said, do you know how much energy it takes to control the dreams of hundreds of people? I rolled my eyes and said, don't you always want a computer? I'll buy it for you this time when you go back. Cai Dai's eyes lit up and she said without thinking, deal. But you still have to buy me a lot of delicious food. Okay, okay. Zhang Shii couldn't help laughing when he saw this scene. He said, Lu Su, why do I feel like you have raised a daughter? As soon as these words came out, Cai Dai glanced at Zhang Shii fiercely. Zhang Shii was so frightened that he quickly shut his mouth, but I joked at the side, why did you think of me together? Colorful butterfly rushed towards me with its teeth and claws open. Lu Su, you have gone too far. Kadi has short arms and short legs, so she runs like a small ball. She kicked, hit, and scratched me, but it didn't cause any real harm because she didn't really want to teach me a lesson. Time soon came tonight. Village Chief Huang prepared dinner for us, and he also prepared the previous meals. Zhang Shii picked up the chopsticks and wanted to eat happily. I shook my head slightly at him. I always felt like there was something weird about this meal. In the past, Village Chief Huang would choose to leave after delivering the meal, but this time he stood aside and looked at Zhang Shii and me. Eat, why don't you eat? Where are the two girls? You can call them over and eat together. I picked up the chopsticks and said to Village Chief Huang, they are both feeling unwell and are resting in the room. They will not eat tonight. As I said that, I picked up a piece of meat and put it in my mouth. When Zhang Shii saw me eating it, he no longer hesitated. Village Chief Huang obviously let out a long sigh of relief when he saw the two of us using chopsticks. After eating, Zhang Shii and I returned to the room and called Kadi out. Kadi, come and see if we are both poisoned. After hearing this, Cai Dai was slightly startled and asked, poisoned? What kind of poison have you been poisoned by? I have always been in your body, and your body has long been immune to poison. Unless it is a particularly powerful poison, it cannot be harmed at all. Your turn. I was stunned, is there such a benefit? Then show me too. I'm still a little worried. Cai Dai stretched out her index finger and touched my eyebrows lightly. The next moment, 7 colors of light flashed through her eyes. You are not poisoned, but you have been poisoned. This kind of poison can control people's minds. However, you don't have to worry, this poison is useless to you. I looked at Zhang Shii and said to Cai Dai, please help him take a look. Kaidi nodded, stretched out her index finger again, and touched Zhang Shii's eyebrows. The next moment, Zhang Shii began to retching, and then vomited out the food he had just eaten with a loud sound. Several small blood-red insects were crawling crazily on the ground. Cai Dai waved his hand, and the little insect turned into fly ash. Zhang Shii complained endlessly. This is so unfair. After the same meal, I would vomit, but nothing happened to you. I smiled and said, don't complain. If we act later tonight, the village chief will definitely come to trouble us again in the evening. We just need to deal with it and then we can start taking action. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1300. Zhang Shi nodded and said to me, "Pay attention to safety." I nodded and replied, "You too." I returned to the village. The village was deathly silent, with no insects or dogs barking. It was so quiet that it made people feel panicked. I planned to go see what was strange about the coffin where Yinggo was lying, but I didn't take a few steps. I saw a few figures appearing not far away. I stopped and just about to take a closer look, I saw darkness in front of me. The clear night sky was instantly covered by dark clouds, blocking the stars and the bright moon, and the world fell into darkness. This kind of black is an inky black, a black that makes you unable to see your fingers. Suddenly, I felt like I was tapped on the shoulder. I frowned and picked up the 9 layers Thunder Ju. Dazzling blue thunder and lightning illuminated the darkness. I turned around suddenly and saw a grim humanoid white skeleton standing behind me. At the same time, part of the dark clouds in the night sky dispersed, and the cold moonlight shone down on the earth. Through the moonlight, I saw the situation I was in now. I saw countless skeleton corpses standing around me, surrounding me. They are just white bones without flesh and blood. They must have been completely corroded by the soil. Their empty eyes stared straight at me. I can't kill these corpses yet, I still need to let them help me break the seal of Drought Demon Tomb. At this moment, the goo corpse suddenly made way for me, and a figure walked towards me. I took a closer look and saw that it was Yinggo. I saw Yinggo looking at me jokingly, his eyes full of disdain. "Lu Su, we meet again." I looked at Yinggo coldly and said nothing. Yinggo came to me and said disdainfully, "Lu Su, do you think I didn't notice your arrival? I knew you were coming when you first entered the village. Besides, do you think there's nothing I can do after moving those villagers?" I asked coldly, "What is your purpose of raising corpses?" Of course I know the purpose of Yinggo raising corpses. However, if I am bombarding him, I just want to find out whether he knows that I went to Hanbao tomb. Yinggo chuckled lightly and said, "Why should I raise a corpse? You don't need to know about this." Hearing this sentence, I breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that he didn't know about my visit to Hanbao tomb. I will definitely fight Yinggo later. I pretend to be defeated and then run away. Yinggo is taking these zombies to the Drought Tomb, and I am waiting for an opportunity to use these zombies to break the seal. I looked at Yinggo coldly and said, "I have moved the villagers, and your plan has been in vain. I will end it with you today. Also, tell me where the general is." After hearing my words, Yinggo seemed to have heard a big joke. He said jokingly, "How do you know that I failed to raise a corpse?" A bad premonition suddenly arose in my heart. At this time, I suddenly heard the sound of fighting coming from the west end of the village. I looked at Yinggo and asked, "Do you have help?" "That's right, you knew it was too late." I knitted my brows into the Chinese character Chuan and without any hesitation, I used Nine Eyes Heavenly Domain and rushed towards the west end of the village. When Yinggo saw me leaving, he didn't chase me. Instead, he followed me calmly. When I came to the west end of the village, the scene in front of me completely stunned me. I saw corpses everywhere and rivers of blood everywhere I looked. Those villagers were actually killed. Moreover, in this mountain of corpses and sea of blood, I saw a familiar figure, Zhao Mian.